Let it roll, guys. Let it roll. What is going on,
Reno.
everybody? Welcome back to another Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I am your host, Rob Haytan. Joined with me are my two co-hosts, Randy and Brendon. Guys, the Boston Celtics tonight, they squeaked past a hungry Detroit Pistons 124 to 118. Like Brendon said, the Boston Celtics here starting off 3-0 for the third consecutive year. Guys, the Boston Celtics are looking to extend their little hot start to the season against the Milwaukee Bucks. That game will be this Monday at the TD Garden at 7:30 tip-off. Jason Tatum was the player of the game tonight. We're going to talk about him a little bit more as the post-game show goes on. Guys, you know the drill. Our initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways on tonight's win.
All right, so Rob, we squeaked this one out, man. I can't even lie to you.
We did.
It was touch and go down the stretch, but we're 3-0. Can't complain. 3-0, perfect start to the season. Our big guys, the stars came through down the stretch. Jason Tatum, clutch mid-range, kind of iced the game. Derek White, that huge block. All just winning plays down the stretch. Jaylen Brown's been criticized so much for his ability to make clutch free throws, as we saw last season a lot, actually. Sealed the game with those clutch 2 free throws, put us up by 4. That kind of sealed the game. And happy to get the win 3-0 and on to Milwaukee.
Yeah, I just thought, honestly, that this was a game that we were probably not gonna get out of alive, but somehow, like Randy was saying too, like in the coming end of it, White kind of stopped him, Kay Cunningham, but the bucket for that block, so that was huge. Obviously, a couple minutes at the end of the game too, Drew Holiday was stepped up, get some big threes, so that kind of helped out. He had a slow start to the game, but all around the starting lineup just ultimately just really paid off at the end. Obviously, we kept all our starting 5 in there those last 4 minutes, so everybody in a way contributed, which was awesome to see. I mean, I don't even know how we escaped out of that. It's crazy,
right.
But it was a good night of basketball, so I'm thrilled. So
you guys weren't here last year. A saying that I had going on, I'm gonna bring it back: winning cures everything, and that is the definition of what tonight was, right? I mean, the Boston Celtics, they came out, they looked good, their shots were falling defensively, they were there, a little lackluster again. But then the Detroit Pistons, credit to Detroit tonight. They came to play. They were down, but they were not out. They put their foot on the gas. They, smelt blood, and Boston allowed them to get back into the game. I think Boston did a lot of good things tonight. I think they did a couple of things that were poor. As for the good, I really liked their ability, I think, when the game was late, to acknowledge, all right, let's make defensive plays here. Let's get some stops, and then let's get some easy looks and good looks on the other end. And I thought they did that and executed perfectly. In a major credit to them, because execution is something you want to see out of a championship team. We know this team's a championship team. It's a new year, though, and they showed more execution early on in the year, which is always a good sign. Some things I didn't love. Perimeter defense, yet again, kind of fell, was lackluster. I think Detroit kind of had their way getting into the paint. Ivy, we talk about Boston struggling with those quicker guards. He got the best of Boston tonight, 26 points from him. And then Durant on that backside. Again, when you talk about and you look at a player like Jaren Durant, so much of his offense is predicated around the guards getting into the paint, the guards getting loose. Tonight, 15 points. He did a great job at being in that dunker spot, and the responsibility is going to fall to the guards. So a couple of quick things that I noticed tonight, guys, but let's hop right in to tonight's SeatGeek player of the game, guys. None other than Jason Tatum. Tonight, Jason Tatum was yet again a madman out there, continuing his very hot start in what could potentially be an MVP campaign to this 2024-2025 season. Guys, before we dive into Jason Tatum, I do want to say this post-game show is brought to you by SeatGeek. Guys, SeatGeek is the best ticketing app out there. Use code Celtics Weekly for $20 off your first purchase, guys. They have a great system that shows you whether the ticket is worth it or not. Green means it's worth it. Red means to avoid it. Alongside that method is a great view of your seat, guys. We use it anytime we go to a game, and you guys should as well. However, talking a little bit more about Jason Tatum, guys, 37 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 assists alongside a block, guys. He shot over 40% from downtown again, 6 of 13, got off to a hot start. When you look at what Jason Tatum is doing, Randy, in his improvement, what is standing out most outside of that 3-point shot?
Honestly, I mean, we talked about it in game 1, his 10 assists that game. He's just been able to all around command the offense, I think, in a way he didn't even – I don't want to say he didn't have the capability of last year, but I think at least so far in these first 3 games, he's sharing the rock. He's taking his step back jumpers. His jump shot looks absolutely pure. I mean, I haven't seen the guy look so confident shooting a ball, I think, his entire career. We see him develop every year, but I think this is the start of his, I don't want to say his year that he just his year that he takes that next step, which for him, he has all these accolades. I think is going to be MVP this year. So, well, that's the conversation for another show. But is it crazy, Rob, for me to say that even with 37 points of the 3 games, I think this was his worst game?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
I don't think that's too crazy of a take. I mean, there was I forget when it was. I think maybe 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Things weren't looking great. I mean, or I don't know. I forget exactly when it was, but it was a second chance opportunity. It was a tough shot by Jaden Ivey from 3, and I literally watched Jason Tatum stand right at the elbow and watch Isaiah Stewart grab the rebound, put it up and in for a second chance point. And I'm not criticizing him on just this one play, but it was a lot of stuff like that. 37 points, great. He scored. He racked up his rebounds, whatever. But I think on the defensive end tonight, we did not see as active hands as we did in the past couple games. Whether that's a hot take or not, but just this game for Jason Tatum, it looked more, I don't want to say lazy, because he had 37, but on the defensive end, I just don't think he was as dialed in as, the rest of the guys like Derek White, Drew Holiday. They had active hands, even Peyton Pritchard. Tonight was not the best performance on defense for Tatum. And that's big when it comes down to if I'm saying a guy did great or not,
Right, no doubt about it. And I think with Jason Tatum, too, I mean, mind you, he was phenomenal tonight on all aspects, in my opinion, right? I think the evolution that we're seeing, this new version of Jason Tatum, is a nonchalant 37. It didn't feel like, in the first half, he went nuclear, but a lot of times last year, we've kind of seen Jason Tatum fizzle out. He had a dominant first half, right, Brendon? And then the second half, he fizzles out. Tonight, what did he do well offensively in that second half that kind of allowed him to kind of get the hot hand and kind of keep going?
He had those big threes that I feel like towards like the end of the third quarter, I think it was, to kind of step it up a little bit too. I think he made one of the last field goals to kind of boost our lead back up in the fourth. So that definitely went a long way as well. Not much, obviously, went on too heavily in the second half for him to kind of step it up, though. But I think like towards the end, like I said, he made that last field goal to kind of be like the dagger of the night. But other than that, I just feel like it was kind of a slow second half for him, though. But it was, I think it's just one of those slumps that he's going to have this season too.
I think for me, and I don't disagree with what either of you said, quite frankly, and it's going back to kind of what Randy said real quick. I think it's very fair to look at Jason Tatum tonight and be like, okay, he was checked out for a little bit, right? I think it's fair. It's the regular season. It's a game against Detroit. It's a long, it happens, right? It's a long season. You're going to get stints where you're kind of like, okay, I'm checked out for a little bit. A box score that I look for with Jason Tatum to tell me whether or not he was checked in for 48 minutes is those rebound numbers, right? It tells me something, right? All right, was he there for 48 minutes? Every time was he on the floor, was he doing something? Tonight, he only had 4 rebounds. So that tells me that he was still phenomenal, right? He looks way better this year. And I hate to nitpick, but something I noticed was, okay, he wasn't there all the time, right? Only 4 rebounds. Yeah, could look for a little bit more on the glass, right? From a mentality standpoint. And then going off of what Brendon said, right? I think Tatum was phenomenal in the second half. And I think that he was so able to get to his spots in the second half, right? And he wasn't reliant on that three ball, right? Because it was butter in that first half. He leaned off of it in the second. He was able to get into the paint. He got a couple of mid ranges. He got to the free throw line to end the game. He mixed and matched. And for me, that's big time for a guy like Jason Tatum. He's so versatile. He can get into his bag. He can pull different tricks out of it. I think when you look at Tatum, you want to see versatility. You want to see like all this just different dynamic style of play, because that's the player he is. So from Jason Tatum's standpoint tonight, I loved what I saw. I mean, he's off to a hot start, an early MVP favorite without a doubt. 3 games in, he's the pick. However, a lot of basketball to play. Guys, another player I want to talk about is Jaylen Brown. And real quick, we're going to go over JB pretty quick because it was a very poor shooting night from him. But I think he did a lot of good tonight, right? 24 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists for JB.
Yeah.
A number that sticks out to me: 5 assists to 2 turnovers. In Jaylen Brown's little checkbox, that's perfect. That's what you want to see. 2 assists, right around to 1 turnover. A plus 11 plus minus, guys, was the highest on the team outside of Al Horford. Randy, real quick here, you look at Jaylen Brown, and every year he's progressed and gotten better. It feels like maybe this year's step for Jaylen Brown is the calmness and playmaking ability that we're seeing out of him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've heard me on past post-game shows. I'm super high on Jaylen Brown. Obviously 1A and 1B for Tatum and Brown, but I'm just super high on Jaylen Brown's athleticism, as we like to call it, his all-around just freak athlete. I mean, his defense, I think today, he was not afraid to take on anybody. He was
Right.
going up against Stewart. He was going up against Cade. I mean, he didn't turn anyone down. And like I say with Tatum, sometimes you can see it, at least on the defensive end, how locked in Jaylen Brown is. He's got, it looks like he's doing foot fires out there. He's like, yeah, someone take me on. I wanna just. It's a thing of beauty. And then, on the offensive end tonight, like we said, 24 points, which is crazy to say that we're sitting here saying that wasn't a great night. I mean, you look at other superstars, all-stars in the league, 24 is, I mean, that's a pretty good game for them. But like you said,
Right.
I think tonight, I mean, it wasn't the greatest offensive performance. And I think a lot of credit is due to the Pistons. They were doubling Brown a lot, and I think him as well as Tatum, when they were getting doubled, they weren't really forcing anything. They got their double teams. They were making the right passes, opening up the floor, and kicking
Right.
it out to the right man. I mean, we talked about it in the first game. It's like they had eyes in the back of their head, and they knew. I think it comes back to chemistry and Joe Mazzulla, like I was talking about, but they know where their other teammates are, and they're getting the double team, and they're immediately just knowing exactly where to go, whether they get the hockey assist or the actual assist. They're making the right play time and time again, and I think that is why we are seeing the Celtics become one of the greatest teams in the NBA.
Now, something that we need to talk about tonight, guys, right? That 3-point shot. A lot of them again. It's a trend that we're kind of seeing. And tonight, more so than the first 2 games, I wasn't too fond of them. I thought a lot of them were kind of forced, or, we passed up a couple of, looks at the rim to kick out for a 3. And I'm all for, open threes, but sometimes it felt like at courses in the game that 2 points could have stopped the bleeding, right? Where, yes, I get it, that 3 is great, but sometimes you just take the gimme. And, when you, Brendon, look where currently the Celtics are, right? They're 3-0, they're coming off a championship, they're playing great ball. They're really, at what point do you have to look at this, right? This 3-point shooting, and I guess how sustainable do you think it is? Tonight, Boston shot 48 threes. They made 22 of them, 46 behind the arc, right? That's phenomenal numbers, but it felt like it was kind of, at times, was the reason that 3-point shot is why Detroit was able to get back into the game. So how sustainable is this for Boston to keep shooting this sheer volume of threes and making them at this clip?
I look at a scenario like tonight where, we at one point in the game, like first half, like going into the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, we were shooting phenomenal with threes, but then tonight was kind of a lackluster in the second half where
Right.
Detroit was kind of cutting our lead down, and that kind of was the point where we were trying to take more, and then we just thought maybe the more we take them, they're just going to go in, but that wasn't the case because when we missed shots, Detroit made their shots, and that was just kind of the thing
Right.
where when these kind of scenarios happen, I think we just kind of like everyone says, just slow it down a little bit, kind of just don't just chase it, make that lead bigger. Just try and, obviously make the lead bigger, but don't, just bombard yourself with threes because that's just not going to the way
Right.
to go, especially if the opposite side is making their shots.
Yeah.
I
mean,
sorry, you go, Randy.
no, I was just gonna say, Brendon, that's exactly kind of how I felt to it. It honestly reminded me a little bit of 2021, 2022 Celtics, where we go up by a lot, we give the lead up, and then to try and crawl back in the game, we're just hucking up these. Just to pick on one guy, these Tatum ISO ball, step back threes, step back mid range, and Jaylen Brown, probably best mid range guy in the league, but we don't need his contested two contested 2 point, contested 3 pointer, mid range, whatever. When that's not the best shot in that scenario, and I think we're going to learn that down the stretch this season. That when that happens, we need to just drive the ball. That's it. We got some of the strongest guys in the league. I feel like physicality wise, Tatum. He looks bigger than he has in his entire career. Same with Jaylen Brown, Derek White. They all massive. We just got to drive the ball and get a bucket.
The weird thing I feel like about this year is because we had this problem last year, right? Where they shot a lot of threes, right? And sometimes it cost us some games, right? But at the end of the day, come playoff time, they were never reluctant to go to the paint and get the easy bucket. And they understood that, listen, there's a time and a place to shoot threes, right? And they understood that sometimes you take what the defense gives you all the time, right? But a lot of the time it's the 2-pointer. And they adjusted in the playoffs and you didn't really see much of a problem. So it's weird because like same team, same core, you expect them to do that the same. So I'm kind of hesitant to kind of jump on the gun and be like, oh, this is a problem because one, they're making them. And two, we've seen Boston go through dry spells all year long, continue to shoot them. And then when the playoff came, they were ready for it. My thing, and I think the interesting kind of narrative to the season with the Celtics, right, is if you know when to steer off of them in the regular season, one, it's going to become a nice habit that you develop in the postseason that you don't have to worry about it and maybe drop a game. Not worried about that. But two, you can pick up a couple more wins. And Boston winning 64 games last year, there was about 4 or 5, maybe 6 games they could have won had they just kind of held back off the three and stopped the bleeding. So this year, I think Boston is good enough to push the high 60s in the win total, guys, right? Yeah. I'm not saying they're going to get 70. I'm not saying they're going to break the record. But I think there's a real possibility that the Boston Celtics push 60-plus wins. And I think if I'm Boston, you should go for that, right? That's something that it's a statement. And this team wants to make statements. So I don't know about you guys, right? But my thing is right now, as a Celtics fan, I feel very, very confident, right? I'm going to feel confident, I think, until I'm given a reason to worry a little bit. And the reason to worry is probably going to take a lot. So for me, I want to see these guys get into the high 60s. I want to see like a 68 win season. I want to see an all-time win total they're putting up there, top 5, top 4, right? Somewhere, something ridiculous. And I think they're capable of doing it.
I think so too. I think it just depends, obviously, like we just talked about, these, or like what I was saying earlier, like in these kind of scenarios where we take too many threes and like the other teams trying to come back to that point and kind of ruin our lead or spoil it, that's just gonna drive us down. But like this team, I feel like we have this year, they have the like the chemistry from last season, building up to the championship win in June. It was just, and then not changing much of like the starting 5 and then the bench rotation. It all matches up to, like Rob just said too, like a 60-plus win season. And once again, it's going to be something to definitely keep an eye on for sure. And like, I feel the same way, Rob, too. Like, we have to have someone has to give me a reason to worry if we're going to obviously go downhill, but it's not looking like that the way we're playing right now. I mean, tonight was obviously one of our closer games we're going to have this year, but I think we still proved that, we can kind of get out of fights like this alive.
Right.
Yeah. I'm right with you, Brendon. I see the Celtics high 60s, even low 70. I think I think we could.
Low 70. Whoo, whoo.
There's
That's
a
a hot
chance.
one right there.
I see us
74-8.
I don't know. I mean, I had us before the season sitting around 9 to 10 losses. So I don't know. I mean,
But let me say
maybe
this.
that's
Let me
too
hop
hot,
in
but
here, right? In order for them to even think about doing that, touching into that, right? They need to do a much better job than what they did tonight in terms of knowing when to steer off the three. Because I tell you what, if you're not playing Detroit and you're playing Cleveland, you lose tonight.
You're losing that game.
Right, the 17-point lead gets probably flipped around real quick to a 10-point lead for Cleveland. So if Boston is serious about, and again, it's like, how much does it really matter? Probably not a whole lot, right? I mean, obviously it means something to the fans. It's cool, right? But the only thing that matters, I mean, the greatest team of all time record-wise didn't win the NBA Finals, right? So, it's to jump in here. I feel like, if they want to do it, they have to do a better job at what they did tonight. Right. So I think that's like the most important thing right now for the Celtics is just understanding. All right. When do we lean off the three? When is a good time? Okay. We're going to take these next 3 minutes. We're going to get to the paint, get to the basket, establish that, and then we'll get back onto the three. I think that's right now where they got to be at.
Yeah, no, Rob, I 100% agree with you. I mean, look, coming into tonight, I said to myself, you guys were talking about a lot how there's going to be those fluke games. We lose to Charlotte. We're going to lose to the Pistons. But coming into tonight with the dominant performances we've had, I was saying to myself, I was like, I don't know. I mean, this might be that team that we lose, maybe to Cleveland, maybe to Milwaukee. Hard fought losses that are like, okay, they lost to a contender. Whatever.
Right.
I really had no doubt that we would have those fluke games. And then after tonight, I'm sitting here like, okay, maybe next game we don't get that block from Derek White. Maybe next game Jaylen Brown misses one of those free throws and Tyrese Halliburton comes down and knocks a three in. It's overtime when we lose. I mean, that's what I'm just concerned now a little bit like, okay, maybe we do end up stumbling to a Charlotte or to a I don't know, a Houston
but again,
I
I feel like for me, if we lose a game to Charlotte, okay, so what? We're not going to see Charlotte in the playoffs. I think the something worth watching, because I feel like right now for Celtics fans, it's like, oh my God, we're so much better than everybody else. We're so good. And yes, that's true. But I'm going to say this. There has been no team to repeat in about 6 years. Right? No team has done it. And I'll tell you what, a lot of those teams looked really dominant. And a lot of those teams had some pretty good young stars, right? So we've seen, mind you, have we seen anything as good as Boston? No, not in those 6 years we haven't, right? So not saying it won't happen. But what I am saying is it's really hard to win one NBA Finals, let alone back-to-back NBA Finals. So for the Celtics, it's really important this year, right? Yes, you want to beat those Detroit games. You want to beat those, Charlotte and, Houston, those weaker opponents. You want to beat them. You want to build good habits. You want to rack up that win total. You want to get home court, right? For Celtics, though, how do you look against the Knicks, right? They looked really good. Milwaukee, that's another one. You want to look good. Every time you play Milwaukee, you want to look good. You want to do the right things. You want to be locked in. Every time you play Denver, you want to look good. You want to, right? If the shots don't fall, they don't fall, but you want to get those shots, right? You want to play your game. And I think that's really important this season for Boston, more so than last year. Last year, right, it was kind of a panic button if they lose to Charlotte or Houston. But it's not the end of the world if they do this year. And I think, like, for them progressing forward, I don't know what you guys think, but it's like, look good against the good teams, right? Just keep looking good against those good teams, rack up the wins against the bad teams.
Yeah, you're the most dominant team in the Eastern Conference, which I think we've obviously we know with the favorites this year without a doubt. But obviously, like Rob just said too, we gotta beat the rest that we think are the best in the East too. Obviously, and like we just tracked back onto before too, we might fumble to some bad teams, but I think with those, not trying to like throw any good things at the other teams, but what I'll say is this: when they hear they're gonna be facing a team like Boston, they go into practice and they just make up like so much like things to just like kind of take our game off a little bit too, which I feel like that happens to any other team too. But yeah, I just think it's just something that we just have to keep proving that we're the kings of the East.
Right, you're exactly right. Boston has a much bigger target on their back this year than they did last year. Much bigger.
100%.
You're gonna get every team's best game. Odds are when they come in and they play you, right? More times than not, the other team is going to give you their best shot, and that's going to be really tough on these guys. And this season, in my opinion, it's going to be way harder than last season was. It's going to be way more battle tested. They're going to have to get a lot more out of them this year than opposed to last year. So, I think, like, again, this team is so good. So good. Everyone knows it. But if you think for a second that teams around the league are going to be like, oh, the Celtics are really good, let's just, we're going to let them beat us. And that's that. Like, no, like, not at all. Like, that's not what this is going to be like. And there are some things worth noting around the Eastern Conference, right? I still believe there's no team that can run with the Celtics through 7 games, but a lot of things can happen over the course of 82 games, guys. A lot of things. So Boston tonight, I think they took the right steps, right? Yes, there was a third quarter period where you looked really bad, but at the end of the day, you executed, you made the plays down the stretch, you looked like the championship caliber team, and you won, right? That to me is worth something. It's a positive. You looked like the battle-tested team.
Yeah, and it's crazy, Rob. You know what's going to come from this? We're going to get the Boston media, our own media, headlining. Oh, are the Celtics even this? Are they that? Are they? Well, that's coming, which is the most crazy part about it. It's going to be our own media that's going to come at Jason Tatum, come at Jaylen Brown, saying blah blah blah. They close game, didn't do it, but look at us, still 3-0, perfect. I mean, I don't know. That's just I can't stand it.
Let's do this now, right?
Game.
Right, exactly, no doubt. But we got Milwaukee on Monday back at home. This game, I think, is worth talking about. It's going to be a good one. Middleton, obviously, not going to probably play. Hauser still up in the air. He hasn't played these back to past 2 games, but I expect him to at least maybe be a game time decision. No, obviously, no Porzingis. Milwaukee is a team who is a little bit interesting, right? Because, last year it felt like they got off to the super hot start. They were only at 4 or 5 games behind Boston for first. They made a weird midseason firing, getting rid of Adrian Griffin, bringing in Doc Rivers, and they kind of ran it back, but they brought in some pieces. They're older. Dame and Giannis, you know how good they can be. Guys, what are you looking for out of Boston Monday night against Milwaukee that, you would like? What are you looking for exactly?
I mean, on Monday, honestly, I think what it comes down to is are our stars better than their stars? Is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum going to go bucket for bucket with Giannis and Dame? Because I think this year Giannis and Dame they're gonna get it together, and I honestly have them sitting at second. It's either going to be Boston, Milwaukee, New York, or Boston, New York, Milwaukee, and I think really what it comes down to after those 2 starts is our perimeter defense, which is what you said. You talked about this game. We're getting beat off the dribble, and props to Derek White getting his block at the end. But why did he get that Why did he get that block? Because he got beat off the dribble and he recovered. Great, I'm happy he got the block. But it was a lot of that tonight, and I think against guys like Dame, guys like Bobby Portis, even Brook Lopez, who we know is deadly from 3, and of course Giannis. I mean, we're going to need guys like Al Horford to step up big. I know Giannis against Al Horford has been a battle down the stretch, in past games and playoffs. It's been, Al Horford versus Giannis. It's like a battle. And Al's been a brick wall against Giannis. But I think really that's what it's going to come down to on Monday. Can the Celtics, beat the Bucks off the dribble? That's really, I think, if we can do that, I think we can contain the other guys. We need to stay with Dame, stay with Bobby Portis off the dribble, and then, just allow our defense to get set up shop. And, we have probably the 5 best defenders in the league. So I think we just need to slow them down and not allow them to beat us off the dribble.
So I'll say this. I'll just say, I know everyone's just gonna be watching Giannis's too. I just think it definitely just has to be a matchup on the defensive side. I know obviously Drew Holiday's facing his old team too. I mean, he hasn't, played Giannis as much since he's left there. So, I mean, not that he's guarding him, but still, I just think it's going to be a matter of like how they can mix their, how to contest Dame's 3-point shots is what I need to see more out of Drew defensively too, which is really,
Right.
I want to see more defense from Drew. I haven't seen much of his backcourt defense this year. So I want to see, him try and contest Dame's shot, which I know is tough for any guard in the league to guard him. But, and also, I think Brown and Tim going to kind of get together and guard Giannis down low too at the 4.
Could be very interesting to see how they guard Giannis, because you're probably going to put Horford on him, but you don't want to throw so much wear and tear on Horford because it's still so early. So what type of coverages, what packages? I'd expect to see Drew on him a little bit at times. I think they're going to switch it up.
I don't think. I mean, this is coming back to tonight a little bit, but I don't think we can have Luke Cornett out there for as long as we had him. I mean. He's just, I love the guy, but he's just a defensive liability. I mean, I liked Tillman a lot tonight, and I think down the stretch against teams like the Bucks, I think we're going to see Tillman step up into that second center position because I really just I don't think we can have Luke Cornett out there, especially against like Giannis.
Well, I do think that there are matchups that you play Cornett, and there are matchups when you play Tillman. I think Missoula's still figuring out which teams are which, and I think you'll kind of start to see Missoula figure it out with like about halfway through the season when you kind of seen more and more teams. That's a good point, though. I really like Tillman in this matchup against Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a team that spaces the floor very well. They can, just like Boston, can get really hot from behind the arc, and they're really tough to keep in front of you. So for me, I'd steer away from Cornett because you figure if Cornett's out there, he's hovering around that block area, kind of playing a weird help like shadow from Lopez out, for 3 and playing help off if someone gets beat off the dribble. And he's not too much of an interior threat in help down there. So I'm going to go steer towards Tillman. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where Boston goes. I think for me, the biggest thing I want to see against Milwaukee is, the bench stepping up. Pritchard was phenomenal tonight, and I want to keep seeing more and more of that. Yes, we know Pritchard can do it when he's called upon, but just keep continuing consistency. When the bench is going, this team's really tough to beat because we know how good those starting 5 are. So hopefully we got Hauser back in the lineup. I'd like to see Pritchard stay hot, right? For sure. And, I definitely think it's going to be a good matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks. As for tonight's matchup, guys, the Celtics absolutely stood their ground and remain undefeated in their 2024-2025 title defense, guys. They beat the Detroit Pistons on the road 124-118. Like we said, Jason Tatum was tonight's SeatGeek player of the game, 37 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists to go alongside 2 steals for JT tonight. The guy continues his MVP campaign. Guys, the Celtics and the Bucks are going to match up at home on TNT. That game's tip-off is going to be at 7:30 on October 28th, this Monday. Guys, right after that final buzzer sounds, come right back here to the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel for what is CTW postgame show. Guys, again, Boston was able to get it done tonight. And from all of us, Rob, Randy, Brandon, the whole crew, guys, we thank you so much for joining us in. And as always, cue the music and go Celtics.